The Cursed Lakeside Zones of Aokigahara Forest. A true horror story inspired by real legends of Japan. At the northwestern base of Japan's majestic Mount Fuji lies a forest unlike any other in the world. Its official name is Aokigahara, but many know it by a darker title, the Sea of Trees. The forest stretches for miles across ancient volcanic rock formed after Mount Fuji's massive eruption in 864 AD. Beneath the dense canopy, sunlight struggles to reach the ground. Twisted roots crawl across black lava fields, and strange magnetic disturbances have long fueled stories that compasses fail deep inside the woods. Most visitors know Aokigahara for its tragic reputation. But fewer people know about the mysterious lakeside regions bordering the forest, isolated shorelines surrounding Lake Saiko, Lake Shoji, and Lake Motosu. These remote areas have inspired generations of ghost stories, disappearances, and chilling encounters. Among local residents, there is an old belief. The deeper one walks from the lakes into the forest, the easier it becomes to lose not only the path, but also the boundary between the living and the dead. The Forgotten Fisherman's Warning. The story begins in the autumn of 1978. A fisherman named Kenji Watanabe spent most of his life working the quiet waters near Lake Saiko. He knew every hidden cove, every rocky shoreline, and every narrow trail leading into the forest. One evening, shortly before sunset, Kenji was pulling in his nets when he noticed something unusual. Across the lake stood a woman dressed entirely in white. She appeared motionless among the trees. At first, he assumed she was a tourist. But as darkness approached, she remained there. Watching. Waiting. The fisherman later told friends that he could not clearly see her face. Yet somehow he felt certain she was staring directly at him. As the last light disappeared behind Mount Fuji, the figure slowly walked backward into the forest. Without turning around. Without making a sound. The following morning, Kenji crossed the lake and searched the area. No footprints. No campsite. No evidence that anyone had ever been there. Yet the image haunted him for years. According to those who knew him, he never returned to that shoreline after sunset again. The shore where voices call. Local legends speak of a remote lakeside section near the dense forest edge where strange voices are sometimes heard at night. The stories are remarkably similar despite being told by different people over decades. Witnesses describe hearing their names whispered from the darkness. Sometimes the voice belongs to a family member. Sometimes a friend. Sometimes someone who died many years earlier. The whispers seem distant at first. Then closer. And closer. As though something is trying to lure listeners away from the safety of the shoreline. An elderly resident once claimed that his brother vanished after following a voice he believed belonged to their deceased mother. Search teams spent 3 days looking for him. When they finally found him, he was wandering aimlessly deep inside the forest. Exhausted. Terrified. Unable to explain how he had traveled so far. He repeated only one sentence. She kept calling me. The Cave of Endless Echoes. Near Lake Saiko lies a network of lava caves formed by ancient volcanic activity. Some are popular tourist destinations. Others remain difficult to access. One particular cave has become the subject of chilling stories among explorers. According to local rumor, voices spoken inside the cave do not always return as ordinary echoes. Several visitors reported hearing words they never spoke. Some heard faint conversations. Others claimed they heard crying. One university student recounted an experience during a camping trip in the late 1990s. While exploring the cave with friends, he called out as a joke. The cave echoed back. But mixed within the echo was another voice. A woman's voice. Soft. Barely audible. Whispering something in Japanese. The group immediately left. Years later, the student still refused to discuss exactly what he heard. Whenever asked, he would simply say, "It knew my name." The lantern in the fog. Perhaps the most famous lakeside legend concerns a mysterious lantern seen near Lake Motosu. According to reports dating back decades, travelers occasionally notice a lone light moving through the trees on foggy nights. The lantern appears human-held. It drifts slowly between the trunks. Sometimes approaching. Sometimes retreating. Curious visitors who attempt to follow it often discover something unsettling. No matter how far they walk, the distance never seems to change. The light remains just ahead. Always visible. Never reachable. One hiking group reportedly pursued the lantern for nearly an hour before realizing they had become hopelessly lost. When rescuers found them the next morning, they were miles from the trail. The lantern was nowhere to be seen. The lost photographer. In 2003, a Tokyo photographer traveled to the region hoping to capture images of Mount Fuji reflected across the lakes. He planned to spend 3 days exploring the shoreline. On the second evening, he ventured alone into a lakeside forest path. He never returned to camp. Authorities launched a search operation. Days later, his camera was discovered lying beside a fallen tree. The battery was dead. But investigators recovered several photographs. Most showed ordinary forest scenery. Then came the final image. A blurred figure standing between the trees. The person appeared unnaturally pale. Their face was impossible to identify. Even stranger, investigators determined no one had been standing in front of the camera when the photograph was taken. The photographer himself was eventually found alive. Disoriented. Weak. Unable to explain where he had spent the missing days. When shown the photograph, he reportedly became visibly distressed. He refused to discuss it. The shadow along the water. Many of the most disturbing stories involve a dark figure seen walking near the lakes after midnight. Witness descriptions vary. Some describe a tall man. Others a woman. A few say it resembles a child. Yet all agree on one detail. The figure casts no reflection in the water. One camper claimed he watched the silhouette move silently along the shoreline for nearly 10 minutes. When he shined his flashlight toward it, the beam illuminated empty ground. The figure vanished instantly. The next morning, he discovered footprints leading from the water's edge directly into the forest. They ended abruptly after several meters. As though their owner had simply disappeared. What lurks between forest and lake? Today, thousands of visitors explore the beautiful landscapes surrounding Aokigahara every year. Most experience nothing unusual. They see breathtaking views of Mount Fuji, peaceful lakes, and ancient forests. Yet the legends endure. Perhaps because the environment itself feels otherworldly. The dense trees absorb sound. The volcanic ground twists beneath every step. Fog drifts silently across the water. And when darkness falls, even familiar paths seem transformed. Whether the stories involve spirits, imagination, natural phenomena, or something that remains unexplained, the lakeside zones of Aokigahara continue to inspire fear. The old residents of the region still share a warning with those who wander near the forest after sunset. If you hear your name called from among the trees, do not answer. And if you see a lantern moving through the fog, do not follow it. Because some paths along the shores of Aokigahara are said to lead somewhere far darker than the forest itself. And not everyone who follows them finds their way back.